2026 will not change your life by accident. It will either expose your discipline or reward it, and what you do in the first 6 months will determine which one happens. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a truth most people don't want to hear. Your life doesn't change because of time. Your life changes because of decisions. 2026 is not magical. January 1st won't save you. A new calendar won't rescue you. But 6 months of the right actions will absolutely rewrite your future. Here's the problem. Most people want new results without new rules. They want a better life while keeping the same habits, the same mindset, and the same excuses. That doesn't work. If you do what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. So let me show you what happens when you do this for 6 months. The moment your life changes is the moment you stop saying, it's the economy, it's my background, it's my age, it's my luck. Because blaming feels good, but it pays nothing. Winners ask one question: how is this my responsibility? When you take responsibility, you take back power, and power is the ability to produce results. 6 months of ownership will turn excuses into execution. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation waits for a feeling. Discipline follows a schedule. If you only work when you feel inspired, you will live an average life. But if you build systems that force progress daily, even on bad days, you will win. 6 months of boring, consistent discipline will outperform 10 years of hype. Hard work without leverage is poverty in disguise. You don't get paid by effort. You get paid by value. Decide to master skills that solve expensive problems. Communication, sales, leadership, digital leverage, strategy. If you become more valuable, your income must rise. That's not hope, that's economics. 6 months of focused learning can separate you from 90% of people. You will never rise higher than the conversations you tolerate. If you're surrounded by people who mock ambition, fear growth, normalize average, then average becomes your destiny. Upgrade your circle, even if it's virtual. Listen to thinkers who stretch you. Sit in rooms that make you uncomfortable, because growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from contrast. Your mind is a machine, and machines produce whatever you feed them. Garbage in, garbage out. If you feed your mind fear-based news, low-level entertainment, negative voices, don't be surprised by low-level results. 6 months of intentional inputs, books, ideas, truth, strategy, will rewire how you think. When your thinking changes, everything changes. Faith without action is fantasy. Action without faith is frustration. But when belief and behavior align, momentum becomes unstoppable. Show up daily, even when results are invisible, even when progress feels slow, because success is not an event. It's a compound effect. And compound growth always looks small at first until it's massive. Imagine where you could be in 6 months: stronger, smarter, more disciplined, more confident, more valuable. Not because you waited for life to change, but because you changed first. Do this for 6 months in 2026, and I promise you one thing: your life will never be the same. Radical responsibility is the moment a person stops negotiating with reality and starts leading themselves. It is the decision to fully accept that where you are right now, financially, mentally, physically, spiritually, is not an accident. It is an outcome. And outcomes always come from choices. Most people want to feel empowered without being accountable. But empowerment without accountability is an illusion. The fastest way to take control of your life is to take responsibility for it. Radical responsibility means you stop outsourcing your future. You stop blaming your past, your parents, your country, your education, your boss, the economy, or bad timing. Not because those things didn't affect you, they may have, but because focusing on them gives you zero leverage. Blame feels justified, but it produces nothing. Responsibility may feel uncomfortable, but it produces results. The moment you say, "this is on me," you regain power. Power is not force. Power is the ability to produce a desired result, and responsibility is where that power lives. Most people confuse responsibility with guilt. They think taking responsibility means beating themselves up. It doesn't. Guilt says, "I am bad." Responsibility says, "I can do better." One weakens you, the other strengthens you. Radical responsibility is not self-attack, it is self-leadership. It is saying, even if this wasn't my fault, it is my responsibility to fix it. That mindset separates leaders from victims. Victims wait to be saved. Leaders move even when it's unfair. When you take radical responsibility, excuses lose their power. You stop saying, I don't have time, and start asking, how can I make time? You stop saying, I can't afford it, and start asking, how can I create the value to afford it? Questions shape behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes. Powerful people ask powerful questions. Weak people ask comforting ones. Radical responsibility also forces honesty. You can no longer lie to yourself about effort, discipline, or consistency. You see clearly where you cut corners, where you quit early, where you chose comfort over growth. That clarity can sting, but it is necessary. You cannot improve what you refuse to confront. Growth begins at the point of truth. Here is the hard reality. No one is coming to rescue you. And that is not bad news. That is freedom. Because if no one else is responsible for your life, then no one else controls it. You don't need permission to improve. You don't need validation to change. You don't need approval to rise. Responsibility puts the pen back in your hand and you start rewriting the story. Over 6 months, radical responsibility compounds. Small daily decisions, waking up on time, keeping promises to yourself, doing the hard thing first, following through when no one is watching, begin to reshape your identity. And once identity shifts, behavior becomes automatic. You no longer try to be disciplined, you are disciplined. You no longer try to be focused, you are focused. Results follow identity every time. Radical responsibility is not easy, but it is simple. And simple, consistently applied, is unstoppable. If you can commit to owning your choices, your habits, your standards, and your responses for 6 months, you will not recognize the person you become. Because when responsibility is radical, transformation is inevitable. Daily discipline over motivation is the understanding that feelings are unreliable, but systems are undefeated. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls based on mood, environment, and circumstance. Discipline is structural. It operates regardless of how you feel. People who build extraordinary lives do not wait until they feel ready, inspired, or confident. They act first, and confidence follows action. If your progress depends on motivation, your results will always be inconsistent. Most people overestimate motivation and underestimate routine. They wait for the perfect moment, the right energy, or the spark of inspiration. But motivation is reactive. It responds to success more than it creates it. Discipline is proactive. It moves before evidence appears. It shows up on ordinary days, boring days, and difficult days. And those are the days that separate those who dream from those who build. Discipline is not intensity, it is consistency. Anyone can work hard for a day or a week when emotions are high. Very few people can work steadily when no one is watching and nothing exciting is happening. But life is built in those quiet moments. Progress compounds in silence. The work you do when you are tired, when results are slow, when recognition is absent, that is the work that changes everything. Daily discipline removes decision fatigue. When you decide in advance what you will do each day, you no longer waste mental energy negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, should I do this today? Because the decision was already made. Discipline creates clarity. Clarity creates momentum. Momentum creates results. This is why high performers protect their routines. They understand that freedom comes from structure, not chaos. Motivation tells you what you want. Discipline forces you to do what is required. Wanting is emotional. Doing is intentional. Discipline turns intention into execution. It closes the gap between goals and outcomes. Without discipline, goals are just wishes with deadlines attached. Daily discipline also builds trust with yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, waking up when you said you would, completing the task you committed to, finishing even when it's uncomfortable, your self-respect increases. Confidence is not positive thinking, it is evidence. And discipline creates evidence daily. When you trust yourself, you move faster, aim higher, and quit less. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, but in reality, it is liberation. The disciplined person controls their time, energy, and focus. The undisciplined person is controlled by distractions, impulses, and emotions. Discipline gives you options. Lack of discipline removes them. What you tolerate daily becomes your future. Over 6 months, daily discipline compounds into identity. You stop relying on hype and start relying on habits. You no longer need external pressure because internal standards are enough. You stop chasing motivation and start producing results. And once results appear, motivation naturally follows. But by then, you no longer need it. Daily discipline over motivation is not about being perfect. It is about being consistent. Miss a day, but never miss the standard. Adjust, but don't abandon. Progress rewards those who return quickly. If you can commit to disciplined action every day for 6 months, even when you don't feel like it, your life will change, not because you felt inspired, but because you became reliable. Skill acquisition that pays is the decision to stop confusing effort with value and start aligning your growth with results. The marketplace does not reward intention, passion, or how hard you try. It rewards problems solved at scale. Income is not a reflection of how busy you are. It is a reflection of how useful you are. When you understand this, you stop chasing random opportunities and start intentionally building skills that increase your economic value. Many people work hard their entire lives and never get ahead because they are working in areas that do not compound. They trade time for money instead of skill for leverage. Time is limited. Skill multiplies time. One refined skill can produce results repeatedly without requiring the same level of effort each time. This is why 2 people can work the same hours and earn vastly different outcomes. The difference is not work ethic, it is skill selection. Skill acquisition that pays begins with understanding leverage. Leverage means your effort affects more people, more systems, or more money without requiring more hours. Skills such as communication, sales, persuasion, leadership, problem solving, strategy, and digital execution carry leverage because they move outcomes. These skills travel across industries. They do not lock you into one job or one role. They make you adaptable, relevant, and hard to replace. Most people learn passively. They watch videos, read books, attend events, and feel productive without becoming competent. Paid skills require deliberate practice. That means studying with intention, applying immediately, and seeking feedback. It means being willing to look clumsy while learning. Mastery is uncomfortable because it exposes gaps. But gaps are not weaknesses, they are signposts for growth. Skill acquisition also requires focus. Scattered learning produces scattered results. You do not need dozens of skills, you need a few that work together. Depth creates income faster than breadth. When you commit to mastering 1 or 2 high-value skills, momentum builds. Confidence increases. Opportunities appear. People pay attention to those who demonstrate competence, not curiosity. Another critical element is market alignment. A skill pays when it solves a problem people are already willing to pay to fix. You don't need to convince the market to care. You need to serve existing demand better than average. When your skill meets urgency, income follows naturally. This R removes the need for begging, chasing, or convincing. Value attracts. Over 6 months, intentional skill acquisition compounds dramatically. Daily learning, daily application, daily improvement, even for 1 hour, can move you from invisible to invaluable. Skills create optionality. They give you leverage in negotiations, confidence in uncertainty, and security that does not depend on one employer or one economy. Skill acquisition that pays is not about getting lucky. It is about becoming undeniable. When your skill level rises, your income has no choice but to follow. If you commit 6 months to building skills that solve real problems, you won't just earn more. You'll think differently, act differently, and see opportunities others miss. Skills don't just change your income, they change your position in the world. Upgrading your thinking circle is one of the fastest ways to change the direction of your life because your environment shapes your expectations long before it shapes your results. Whether you realize it or not, the people you listen to influence what you believe is possible, acceptable, and normal. If the dominant voices around you think small, play safe, and justify mediocrity, that mindset slowly becomes your own. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you fall to the level of your environment. Most limitations are socially installed. People don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they absorb ceilings from others. When everyone around you treats struggle as normal and ambition as risky, You start managing life instead of building it. You begin negotiating your dreams down to match the comfort level of your circle. This is why changing your thinking circle is not betrayal, it is survival. Your thinking circle is not just the people you spend time with physically, it includes the voices you hear daily through conversations. See, content, books, podcasts, music, and social media. If you constantly consume ideas rooted in fear, scarcity, and distraction, your mind will operate from those patterns. But when you intentionally expose yourself to higher level thinking, your standards begin to rise automatically. New thoughts create new questions, and new questions create new actions. Upgrading your thinking circle often feels uncomfortable at first because growth creates contrast. You start noticing how much time is spent on complaints instead of solutions, opinions instead of results, entertainment instead of education. This awareness can feel isolating, but it is a necessary transition. Growth always separates before it multiplies. You are not becoming better than others, you are becoming better than you were. High-level thinkers focus on ownership, systems, leverage, and long-term impact. They talk about what works, what's next, and what's possible. When you surround yourself with this type of thinking, your internal dialogue changes. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, how do I use this? Perspective shifts before performance does. Upgrading your thinking circle also means being intentional about access. You earn proximity by bringing value, not by chasing validation. Listening well, learning quickly, and executing consistently make you welcome in higher level rooms. These rooms don't just give you information, they recalibrate your standards. What once felt impossible starts to feel inevitable. Over 6 months, the compound effect of upgraded thinking is profound. Your language sharpens, your decisions improve, your tolerance for distraction decreases. You no longer need external pressure to grow because the environment itself pulls you forward. Eventually, your results begin to mirror the level of thinking you've adopted. Upgrading your thinking circle is about cutting people off. It's about turning the volume up on voices that challenge you and turning it down on voices that limit you. When your circle evolves, your vision expands. And when your vision expands, your life follows. Control your inputs because your life is a direct reflection of what you consistently allow into your mind. Your thoughts do not appear randomly. They are responses to what you see, hear, read, and engage with every day. The mind is not creative in isolation, it is reactive. Whatever dominates your attention will eventually dominate your behavior. If you do not intentionally choose your inputs, the world will choose them for you. And the world is not designed to make you disciplined, focused, or powerful. Most people try to change their outcomes without changing what they consume. They want clarity while feeding their minds confusion. They want confidence while absorbing fear. They want growth while drowning in distraction. That contradiction guarantees stagnation. You cannot rise above what you repeatedly reinforce. What you watch casually trains you subconsciously. What you listen to for entertainment slowly becomes instruction. Control your inputs means understanding that information is not neutral. Every message carries a bias, an emotion, and an agenda. News programs monetize fear. Social media rewards outrage. Entertainment normalizes excess, distraction, and shortcuts. None of this is accidental. If you consume without awareness, you are being programmed. And what you are programmed with will shape your identity long before it shapes your results. When you control your inputs, you regain mental authority. You decide what gets access to your attention. You become selective, not reactive. You replace mindless scrolling with intentional learning. You trade noise for clarity. This does not mean you disconnect from the world. It means you engage with it intelligently. Awareness without discipline is useless. Discipline without awareness is impossible. Your self-talk is built from external talk. The way you speak to yourself is borrowed language. If your inputs are negative, your inner dialogue will be limiting. If your inputs are disciplined, strategic, and constructive, your internal voice becomes an ally instead of an obstacle. This is why controlling inputs is not about information, it is about identity formation. Small changes here create massive shifts over time. Reading 10 pages a day instead of scrolling for 30 minutes. Listening to ideas that stretch your thinking instead of content that numbs it. Choosing silence over constant stimulation. These are not dramatic actions, but they are decisive ones. Consistency turns them into leverage. Over 6 months, controlled inputs recalibrate your standards. You become harder to distract, harder to manipulate, and harder to discourage. You begin thinking in terms of solutions, not reactions. Your emotional regulation improves because you are no longer feeding anxiety daily. Your focus sharpens because your mind is no longer fragmented. Control your inputs and you control the raw material of your future. You don't rise by chance, you rise by design. And design begins with what you allow in. Faith plus action consistency is the alignment of belief and behavior over time. Faith alone without movement becomes wishful thinking. Action alone without belief becomes exhausting. But when faith and action operate together consistently, momentum becomes inevitable. This is where transformation actually happens, not in moments of inspiration, but in repeated obedience to a direction you believe in, even when results are not yet visible. Faith is not passive optimism. It is a decision to trust a process before it produces proof. It is acting as if the future you are working toward is real, even when the present does not support it yet. Most people wait for evidence before they commit. Faith commits first. It moves without applause. It works without guarantees. It understands that growth is often invisible before it is undeniable. Action gives faith structure. Without action, belief has no outlet. Consistent action is what translates internal conviction into external results. Random effort produces random outcomes. Repeated action in the same direction produces compounding progress. Consistency is what separates those who start from those who finish. It is not intensity that changes lives. It is alignment sustained over time. The hardest part of consistency is the delay. Results rarely show up on the same schedule as effort. This gap discourages most people. They mistake silence for failure and slow progress for lack of potential. Faith keeps you steady in this gap. It reminds you that just because you can't see growth doesn't mean it isn't happening. Roots grow underground before anything breaks the surface. Faith plus action consistency also builds internal stability. You stop being emotionally controlled by outcomes. Good days don't inflate you. Bad days don't derail you. You understand that progress is cumulative, not immediate. This creates resilience. Resilience keeps you moving when motivation fades, and movement, repeated daily, compounds into mastery. Consistency turns discipline into identity. At first, you force yourself to act. Over time, action becomes automatic because it aligns with who you believe you are becoming. You are no longer trying to succeed, you are executing your standards. Standards eliminate negotiation. When standards are clear, consistency is natural. Over 6 months, faith-driven consistency rewires how you see yourself. You gain confidence not from results alone, but from reliability. You become someone who shows up, follows through, and stays committed when it would be easier to quit. That reliability attracts opportunities, trust, and influence. Faith plus action consistency is not dramatic. It is quiet, repetitive, and often unnoticed, but it is unstoppable. If you can believe bigger and act daily, without stopping when progress feels slow, your life will change not because of luck or timing, but because consistency always keeps its promises. As we bring this message to a close, remember this. The next chapter of your life will not be written by intention alone, but by alignment. Alignment between what you take responsibility for, how disciplined you are daily, what skills you choose to build, whose voices you allow to shape your thinking, what information you permit into your mind, and how faithfully you act on what you believe. 6 months may not seem long, but 6 months of focused execution can create separation that lasts a lifetime. Not because the journey is easy, but because it is intentional. Transformation is not reserved for the lucky, the gifted, or the privileged. It is available to those willing to apply pressure consistently in the right direction. 2026 does not require a new version of the world. It requires a new standard from you. When responsibility replaces excuses, discipline replaces motivation, skills replace guesswork, intention replaces distraction, and faith fuels consistent action, progress becomes unavoidable. You do not need more time. You need more alignment. You do not need permission. You need commitment, and you do not need to see the entire path. You only need to take the next disciplined step. If you choose to do this for 6 months, you won't just change what you have. You will change who you are. And once identity shifts, everything else follows.